Hello, this presentation on test preparation was created by the Mathematics Learning Assistants. The Mathematics Learning Assistants are myself, Daniel, Gabriella, Jasmine, Jonathan, and Paulina. In this presentation, we considered many important aspects of test preparation ranging from note taking, where and when to study, time management, how to study, and a particular method of studying. So let us hop right into our first section, which is note taking. Okay, so important things to consider about note taking. You want to write your notes so when you look back on them years from now, they'll be clear. Trust me, your future self will thank you for this because trying to go back over messy notes is it's just a bad experience, trust me. Organization is important because it makes things more clear, more identifiable, and easier to find. There's not much worse than knowing that you did something before in a previous class, but not being able to find it due to a lack of organization. Neat handwriting also makes things more understandable. I've had times looking through my old notes when I was really unable to understand parts of it, which that's not fun either. So always try to make your notes like legible to where you can really understand what they're saying. Self notes and tips are always a good way to remind yourself of the important parts later. Labels make things easier to find and more identifiable, while definitions make things really concise. Example problems show how things are used and are a good way to practice a subject later because the problem's already been worked out, so it's a good way to like refresh your memory on particular things. And a formula sheet is all the important stuff in one place. Repeatedly writing out a formula sheet is a good way to help remember the formulas for tests because the repetition this helps them sink in. These notes here demonstrate virtually all the key elements of good note taking. So these are definitely not my notes. My notes don't look this good, but this is definitely a good example of what we're aiming for here. The label at the top that says the Pythagorean theorem tells us exactly what these notes cover, and right under it is a clear and concise expression of the theorem. The theorem is displayed in three different ways: a complete sentence, what the sides of the triangle itself represent, and finally in variables. So multiple ways of expressing the same thing kind of help it lock into your mind. So it's a good way of doing things. Notice the note here on the left in red gives us two important details about the hypotenuse of a triangle. And then down at the bottom, there is an example problem showing how the theorem is used with notes that explain each step. Finally, though, going back to organization, it's a good idea to also use different colors. If the same color is always used for one thing, it makes it really easy to find, say, notes, labels, definitions, or formulas if you have a different color for each. So now I'm going to hand it over to Jasmine for where and when to study.
Next, we'll be discussing where the best places to study are. So, where to study depends on the type of person that you are. It may take some time for you to find that place that's best for you, but once you do, you have to make sure that it is a productive workspace. So, when looking for a place to study, there are some questions you should ask yourself. First, you should start with, where are the best places near me to study? After that would be, if I did study at that place, would I be distracted? Is this environment noisy? Is it quiet? Would I be comfortable sitting in this area for an extended period of time? Are there any resources nearby to help me study, like a library, a computer, tutors, other classmates, maybe my textbook if I didn't have it with me? You have to make sure that everything you need is in your area where you study, such as snacks, a bathroom, or some coffee. A few places I would suggest are the library, if you like quiet places, a tutoring center, if you feel like you would need support studying a certain subject, maybe an empty classroom so you kind of get that feeling like you're in class, but you don't have the pressure of being on a time constraint like class. My favorite place is a coffee shop because I get to have coffee. I have noise in the background, which helps me focus. Um, and another place would be the park. If you like to be outdoors and have fresh air, I think that would work best for you. Those are my tips on trying to find a place to study.
Okay, so another important thing to think about when it comes to test preparation is time management. So here is a list of good time management tips. One of the cons of not having good time management is that it often puts you getting things done right as they're due. Then the thing is, if something unexpected comes up, then you might literally not have enough time in the day to get things done. And I mean, unexpected things come up all the time. So if you're planning ahead and getting things done preemptively, as unexpected things come up, then you can either A, you've already got them done, or B, you can plan, to finish them because you've probably already started working on them to some degree. And then also, as the slide says, you're in control of your time. Another thing to think about is setting up your day or schedule in such a way that you would actually want to live it. You have to plan for things, that you have to do, but also plan for things that you want to do or free time. Like, you have to be honest with yourself and make a schedule that you can actually follow. So don't be unrealistic. This is one of the first mistakes that a lot of people make when trying to make a schedule. So it takes a bit of negotiation with yourself and balancing the things you have to do versus the things you want to do. Now, I mean, it always helps if the things you have to do are somewhat in line with the things you want to do, but that's not the case for everybody. So, another important thing that goes along with time management is when to study. One of the most important things is do not try to study the entirety of everything a day before the exam. This also kind of goes back to planning. Prepare weeks before the exam, review your textbook, class notes, practice by doing your homework. And as the slide says, the homework is generally designed to at least expose you to the material that you need to understand to be able to pass the exams. It kind of makes me think of a quote I've heard Dr. Reardon say before, and this is kind of paraphrasing, but if you're already prepared, you don't have to get prepared. Okay, so the next topic when it comes to test preparation is how to study. So, what are your learning preferences? Understanding your learning preferences can help you get the most out of your study time. So, what are learning preferences? Well, do you like to read or write? Do you like to listen? Do you like seeing? Are you a visual learner? Or do you like doing? These are the main four categories of learning preferences. Also, consider things like do you study better by yourself or do you study better in groups? By knowing and understanding your learning preferences, you can take advantage of your strengths and find ways to compensate for your weaknesses. Through experience, I know that when I read material, it just does not stick in my head as well as if I can listen to it or see it. So, in many cases, I try to look for audiobooks to where I can listen to material. And when that's just not possible, I'll literally, if I can find the work online, I'll take it and copy and paste it to some text to speech software so I can still listen to the material. So, there's ways of compensating for the things that you know you're not as good at if you know you're not as good at them. So the next thing on our list is a particular type of study method, and I'm going to pass it over to Jonathan. So take it away.
Hey, everybody, this is Jonathan. Um, I am covering a couple of study techniques that really focus on your perspective um, within the topic itself. Um, so, the first portion is considered zooming in. So, it is basically you finding pieces within a given chapter or topic that you feel like are very important pieces to that chapter or topic. So you could consider these subtopics. And you want to make sure that you are spending time gaining a better understanding on or of those subtopics. Because once you have a better understanding of the smaller pieces, it helps you to have a better grasp on the actual topic itself. Because, as you can imagine, it's difficult to effectively solve any problem that is relying on a formula or something like that you don't understand. So you want to spend time learning the parts of the formula or the techniques or methods that you would need to go through um, in order to reach a final answer. If you don't understand the pieces of that formula or technique, then you're going to have a hard time getting a good grasp on the broader technique itself. So imagine you're looking for a circumference of a circle, but you've never been exposed to the idea of a radius or what R stands for in the first place. You it, it would be very difficult to find the circumference of a circle without the radius. So that would be a very important piece of that formula. And the second piece is considering the larger picture of what you're doing or whatever it is you're studying um, by zooming out as opposed to zooming in. So you want to take maybe a step back and try and gain a better understanding of what it is you want to accomplish through whatever you're studying. Um, and maybe attempting to describe what that function to you is will help you learn, because if you can describe it, that at least you can hear yourself going through the motions of explaining it, and you'll know quickly if you do or don't know what it is that you're doing. So you really, it's just having a more broad picture of the function of whatever it is you're studying, and make sure to draw pictures or make any notes that you feel like are important to you gaining that better understanding. Whether it's using different colors or making big circles around what you feel like are important pieces of that topic. And make sure that the notes are not only notes you're copying from your professor, but they're your notes. So make some notes on top of those notes that make sense to you. And if something doesn't make sense, then don't be afraid to ask a question. And if that answer doesn't make sense, ask another question. Ask it a little differently. But you need to be able to have a big picture understanding of each piece of whatever it is within a course that you're studying, so you can effectively utilize the skills that you're learning from the course overall, that standpoint.
So, for some ending remarks, ending this on the topic of zooming out is kind of important in another regard. Why are you here? Like, why are you at college? What are your goals, and how does what you're doing right here and now help you achieve them? I mean, seriously, ask yourself these questions. Here's a quote that I've always kind of liked, and this is paraphrased from Nietzsche, but it's one who has a why to live can always bear almost any how. So once when you have a why, you have a purpose, and once when you have a purpose, you have meaning. And in the end, what's a life without meaning? It seems kind of pointless. So in other words, find your why, find your purpose, find your meaning. College is a great place for that. You get to explore many different things and test yourself in many different ways. Just give it your best shot.